Welcome back, everyone. I'm the Bella Gamer, and we're back with another interesting video. Today, we're going to be talking about my own interpretation of a build in Fabula Ultima based on the character of Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII. Now, or 7 Remake. Actually, more 7 Remake, as that's one people are going to know more. And I think some of his abilities are a bit more clear in the newer remake. In any regard, this video is just a dipping my toe in the water to see if Fabula Ultimate content is the kind of stuff that people want to see. If the video does generally well, I might be doing more of this kind of content in the future. It's something that I'm just doing to kind of test the waters, especially since Fabula Ultima has really been coming into vogue recently, especially in the various TTRPG circles talking about new games coming out. And as well, I chose Cloud as there's not many games that kind of top most people's like top 10, even top 20s than Final Fantasy VII when you're talking about a JRPG. So, let's see. Can Fabula Ultima, the espouted TTJRPG, make one of JRPG's most iconic characters? And I think it can, but I'll let you be the judge. Let's go ahead and get into the build. All right, so starting off, we're going to, when you start the game, you start at level 5, and you have to pick between 2 of the classes or archetypes in the game. For Cloud, I'm going to start off with the Weapon Master as being the primary class, investing first in the Counteract ability here, as well as I probably put 1 point into Counteract and the rest of my points into Melee Weapon Mastery, getting all the way up to the 3rd rank in it, leaving us only 1 point remaining for another class. The reason why I'm doing this mostly is one of Cloud's most iconic features is his overall physicality. How well he fights with his sword, and as well his ability to counteract, especially in the remake. That being the case, boosting the general straight weapon mastery to get as good of an accuracy as possible to make it feel like your character is really good at fighting as they're always constantly hitting, I think is very important, and Counteract is just a really good ability to kind of give your character a little bit of extra flair. For our remaining 1 point at level 5, we're going to be taking Darkblade, as I feel like it's just very appropriate, and for some good reason as well. Darkblade will allow us to wear martial armor and martial melee weapons, though we also got that from Weapon Master, and plus both of these classes gave +5 to your hit points starting out, which means that as you're starting your game, you're already going to be pretty beefy and capable of wielding a great sword, which is a martial weapon, in addition to whatever armor, fits best. Unfortunately, this game doesn't have armor pauldrons, which is kind of like the thing. It's always very strange in the Final Fantasy games, especially 7, where the characters don't really wear armor on anything but their shoulders, which is weird. But however you want to interpret it, you can wear an armor that you think is best fitting for Cloud. I think, honestly, there's not many you can go wrong with. And of course, as the game goes on and you start getting more gear, you're not going to really be able to have too much of a choice at what your GM drops in the game. So, whatever works. The biggest thing is you can use great swords, which is Cloud's weapon, and you can have a armor of some kind. Now, the ability I would recommend taking right off the gates is probably Dark Blood, if I'm going to be honest. Heart of Darkness is okay, but that is a feature we need for some of the class's other features. And Agony, while good, requires a bond towards a specific creature in order to do so. Now, I actually really like the Dark Blade because its whole features rely around bonds, specifically those of bonds with enemies, like Sephiroth, for instance. So I feel like Darkblade fits very, very well. But starting off at level 5, there's not going to be a lot of it, and if you're fighting Sephiroth right off the bat, well, you're already in a lot of trouble, and nothing I could take in Darkblade could fix that. So I feel like Darkblood is overall really good. It gives you dark resistance and poison damage resistance when you're in crisis, which can be quite helpful. So for starting off dice sizes, this was actually particularly difficult for me to, well, I mean, overall figure out, mostly because Cloud can be designed in your game whenever you play the game to kind of lean whatever way possible. Now, the identity of Cloud is mostly around his dexterity and might skills, might especially being a very big one. And great swords, we'll get to that here in just a moment, do use dex and might. So I would say either going with the specialized in dex and mights, allowing you to more or less do really well with your melee weapon, and kind of foregoing your mind points and your insight points for your. No, I don't even think insight points are affected by the inventory. No, your inventory points are just normal. Okay. So yeah, insight's not a very big deal, and Cloud's not much of a people person anyway. So specialized could be the way you could go. Or I could also very much see going average, taking might as your primary stat and dex and willpower as your two stats. So at least you have some mind points and your dex is not that terrible. And in addition as well, these stats will go up as we level. For our starting gear, well, the great sword is right up here, and it's 200 of our zenith. So right off the bat, we're spending 200 of our 500 to pick up a weapon. You can see here it's dex and might, and it gives a +1 to the accuracy, which is really good. One of the big benefits of sword weapons, and of course making Cloud even more accurate considering the benefits he gets as a weapon master. And moving down to the armors, you could really pick anything as far as the martial armors are concerned to make your character feel the way you want to. Cloud, well, is fast, is a very cautious fighter, and thus initiative is not necessarily his prerogative. He tends to watch his enemies first before getting into it, so having a slower initiative just fits the character. That being the case, considering we've already spent 200, we could go all the way out for the steel plate if we really wanted to, taking the biggest initiative penalty, but giving us the highest defense right off the gate. Though if you wanted to kind of go lesser and go down to Brigandine, have some Zenith in your pocket on the way out, that is not a bad way either, and you only have a -2 to your initiative. In the end, it really is based on you. Like I said, this game doesn't have a pauldron kind of armor type, so yeah, it is what it is. But this is how you would start off. But that's not where this build ends. Actually, this build will go even further. Oh, I guess I didn't talk about this. Let's talk about the traits that you'll have, talking about the character's theme, origin, and his or theme, origin, and his, what is that one called? It's like ambition. That's theme. Identity, that's what it is. Theme, identity, and origin. So identity wise, I mean, you wouldn't even need to go on the title. You could put ex-soldier if you wanted to, and I'm speaking plainly, I'm trying not to give any spoilers for the few people out there who have not played the old games or seen one of the many, many, many spoilers out there. I'm trying to be somewhat mindful, so it really doesn't matter. All I'm gonna say is that if it sounds like I'm giving some slightly wrong information based on Cloud, no, it's because I'm accounting for people who have only played the remake at this point. So that being the case, ex-soldier, really good. You could even go with mercenary as a very possible one. You could have a troubled past from this table here, and as well, you could give him the adjective of no nonsense or the like. Describe Cloud. The hometown situation might be a little bit harder, as where your character's origin is depends on the world you're in. So that one I'm just going to have to leave, unfortunately. And for general theme, Cloud is a character who is based on defending the weak and those dear and close to him. So duty would probably suit him very well, or a will to protect would be another way to phrase it. So now that we kind of got the basics of your character sheet, so you don't need to think too hard when you're making this character, let's talk about when you're max level or level 50, when you're slaying gods and godlike men, specifically with angel wings, on your journey. So, going all the way back down to Weapon Master here. We've already invested 4 points and we want to get Weapon Master to its class mastery so that we can get a heroic skill from it. And we're going to get the Weapon Mastery to max. So that's going to be a +4 to hit, +1 if we're wielding a weapon. That's a lot. That's a lot to hit with. That's crazy. In addition to that, counterattack puts us at 5, and now we have a remaining 5 points. Now, this is where it gets somewhat difficult, because in the games, and, even in the remaster, Cloud could kind of go in a lot of different ways. Blade Storm is not necessarily something that would be unusual for him to be able to do, to attack multiple enemies. Nor is Bone Crusher the ability to inflict a status that deals damage to the target. I would probably personally pick up Blade Storm just to give us the option to do multi when it comes up, and I would probably take my remaining levels in Breach all the way to max to give us an additional free attack to kind of mimic his ability to do a flurry of blows, in a sense. Even though this particular attack does no damage, it can destroy a shield or equipped armor or the like, or it can even make another attack deal your skill level ×2, which would be 6 extra damage on your next strike. Really, really good. I really like Breach, and then we'd have to take our remaining level in Bone Crusher to get to our max level. And with that, we have finished out Weapon Master. And now for the heroic skill, we'll go here in just a moment. We're going to be taking Powerful Strike, a very, very good one. And what it allows you to do is when you hit one or more creatures with a melee attack, that attack deals 5 extra damage to each creature. And it increases to 10 when we're level 40 or higher. So at level 10, we'd be doing an additional 10 damage per strike. And if we're using Breach in addition, it's actually an additional 16 damage, which is absolutely nuts. So in Darkblade here, we are going to want to get this one up to max as well, because if you don't know, in Fabula Ultima, every time you get a class to level 10, you get the class is mastered. You can no longer invest in any levels in that class, and you get a heroic skill. So optimally, the best way to play the game is to get 5 characters to 10, or 5 classes to 10, as the max level is 50. So that being in mind, now we're going to take Agony to max, and we're going to take Heart of Darkness, which is just a really good feature. It allows, even if it's a bond, you can kind of phrase it as Cloud's determination to deal with a foe. So if you ever get knocked into crisis, he then focuses, and then you get a lot of the benefits of your Darkblade features. In addition, we'll be picking up not Painful Lesson. We'll be picking up Shadow Strike for the remaining levels, which is our last 3 levels. And more or less what Shadow Strike does is you can use an action, you sacrifice some, you roll your might die, which is going to be really high, so you're going to take a lot of damage. But when you do so, you perform a free attack, and if the attack hits, it deals extra damage equal to your skill level, plus a number of rolled on your might die, but it all becomes dark damage. So it's not something you want to do all the time, especially if the enemy has dark resistance or dark immunity. But Shadow Strike is really good, and your character's going to have a ton of health to utilize. This is really good. Is this a Cloud feature? Not really, and you could ignore Shadow Strike. The biggest things we want from the Darkblade is Agony, because Agony is really good. It represents Cloud's overall determination and his sturdiness, giving him the ability to recover his hit points and mind points when he takes damage from a creature, he has a bond with, and as well, Heart of Darkness allows us to use that feature more than just fighting against Sephiroth, which is really good, and we already had Dark Blood. So whatever you want to do at the last 3 levels is kind of up to you. None of these are really relevant to Cloud as a character, but we do want to get Darkblade to max, so take what you feel is best. So here's an interesting opportunity for us to kind of adjust the build to your personal playstyle. Now, for your heroic skill, we could take Tempest Strike because we have mastered Weapon Master at this point, so we can be able to use take Tempest Strike. This allows us to take a multi-hit and focus it on a single enemy. When doing so, this will allow us to do extra damage to that enemy, showing a rapid flurry of strikes. Whatever limit break, like Omni Slash, where he slashes an enemy a bunch of times, doing a bunch of damage. Tempest Strike could be the way to go. Or we can actually go up to the top here. Sorry if this is a little jarring with the screen moving here. But we can go up to the top and we can actually take a look at the extra features, where extra HP would not be bad to take at this point, or even extra IP. It really depends on what your personal playstyle is, and the best part is it all fits Cloud anyway. Cloud has increased endurance as a soldier or an ex-soldier member, and, he has a fair amount of MP, especially if you're planning on using Materia, which we're going to get to here in a moment. And as well, inventory points, the IP points, are actually also going to be helpful for this build. In any case, it's whatever works best for you of these 3 extras here. Here's a twist that you were probably not expecting, but I'm going to opt to take Tinkerer and you can even take Tinker. I do recommend when you're starting to play that you get Weapon Master at the very least to 10 as quickly as possible. But after that, you don't necessarily have to go into Darkblade, but going into Tinkerer at any point would work really, really well, and that's for a very specific reason, which is going to be Materia. So there is no Materia in Fabula Ultima, naturally, but what there is are Magispheres, and Magispheres do essentially the same things as Materia. So having extra inventory points that you can use on Magispheres is good. It gives you your fire, your Fyra, your Thundaga, all that kind of stuff. But you can get the better versions by taking gadgets here. So when we're going through Tinkerer, we're going to max out gadgets. And the first gadget we're going to max out is we're going to put 3 levels into the Magitech. And if we do 3 levels into Magitech, we're going to get 2 things that are absolutely useless to us. The first 2 points don't do anything because they're not cloud-based, but they're still really cool abilities, like the ability to take over soldier level constructs, or the ability to just pull out a cannon out of nowhere. Cool, but not Cloud necessarily. The big thing is the superior Magispheres. The superior Magispheres are really, really good because what they can do is they can replicate a chosen spell from the Elementalist, Entropist, or Spiritist spell lists. These are your materia, so that you can do whatever combination of spells that work out best for you. Now, when you first select this, probably relatively early in the game, you're going to get how many of these? 3. But when you hit levels 20 and 40, you're going to get another 2 and 2, meaning that you get 7 of these essentially materia that you can slot into your character to use as spells. And then in order to use these materia, you actually use your inventory points. And the best part is that when you use your inventory points, you use a spell action for free, casting one of the spells. Now, the spells follow the normal rules, including the MP costs and the magic tech checks. So keep that in mind. You're not going to necessarily be overly designed as a caster, but you do have access to those, and there are just some that are really good buffing spells that you can use for your character in general. So in any regard, the Magispheres work out really, really well. Now, in addition to the Magispheres, we're going to take actually 2 more levels to pick up the basic and advanced infusions. What this will allow us to do is essentially replicate when you find a weapon in the game that does a specific type of damage instead, these infusions allow you to infuse your current weapon with that. So you can represent having a repertoire of different weapons that do different types of elemental damages with these infusions. And not only that, they're really easy to use, and they only take 2 of your inventory points to apply it to your weapon. And if your weapon uses multi, which we have Blade Storm, so we can when we want to, it applies to each creature as well. Overall, this is good, and it does even more damage, and it stacks on top of our already damaging strikes that do massive amounts of damage. So these infusions are going to be incredibly potent for the build. All right, back here up at the top, one we're going to definitely want to use is Emergency Item. It allows us when we're in crisis to get an additional action that has the inventory type, which means that we can use a healing item or a mind item when necessary in crisis. Very, very handy and very good for this build in general. And it's something that you would do in the game all the time anyways, just pop a potion when you get low. So this makes a ton of sense. And now it kind of goes to whatever way you want to. Now, if you want to replicate having your remedies that hit everyone, you could take Potion Rain, or your ethers that hit everyone. Or you could go instead with the secret formula, and you can make them even stronger. And you can even take these both in some combination, going 2 points into Potion Rain and another 3 points into secret formula. All these do is they make your Magispheres, well, secret formula makes your Magispheres do extra damage if which is really good. And since we're already taking the superior Magispheres, secret formula is really, really good. And so if you went full secret formula, I wouldn't blame you. But Potion Rain could take a few of those points if you want to be able to share some of the love with your allies as well. And of course, we have a ton of inventory points thanks to the fact that we took Tinkerer. But speaking on that, let's go to the heroic skills. In the heroic skills, we have deep pockets here, and that's going to be very, very necessary, as anytime you spend inventory points, you spend 1 less to a minimum of 1. Since many of the Tinkerer features that we picked up expend 2, this is really, really good. So keeping that in mind, this is going to allow you to use your materia as much as possible. It's a very good way to overall give your character a big oomph when it comes to using abilities outside of just your martial combat abilities, or just giving you some extra options. Sorry, I'm getting tongue twisted here, to apply to your build. Overall, just what we have here with the Darkblade, Tinkerer, and Weapon Master, we already got a very Cloud-esque Cloud, if I do say so myself. But we still got 20 levels to spend and 2 more classes to pick up, and I think I got some good options for us here. So for the 4th class that we're looking into for this build is Guardian. And again, Guardian is something that you might want to take a little bit earlier. The Tinker Darkblade Guardian level range can really be at any point you want, and you can invest in these as you see fit. Getting up to your heroic skills are not going to be super necessary, as even something like Deep Pockets, as helpful as it is, can just be seen as a later level feature for your character to make them stronger, and maybe you're focusing more on your general physical abilities. That being the case, Guardian or the Soldier, is a very good way to give Cloud his normal physique and ability to take massive amounts of damage. Speaking of, you get an additional 5 points for your Guardian benefit here, which is very, very good. And we have access to some really good abilities, 2 of which are pretty massive, but there are some other ways that you can take this build. First and foremost, Fortress, I think, is going to be a big must for the build. Getting your character 3 times your skill level in investment here gives you up to 15 extra HP, making you very, very tanky, and something I highly recommend you do, as it's just generally going to be beneficial. But defensive mastery also works, especially if you're going to be wearing a martial armor of some kind, because it does reduce damage based on the skill level as well. And honestly, that is probably better than flat HP, but the levels you can adjust to. And if you take both at max, that finishes off Guardian for you. But depending on your role in the team, sometimes clouds are based on their ability to guard or protect their allies. Whenever I played, I always did things to kind of help guard my allies from damage. So bodyguard and protect can be two levels that we can select, leaving our remaining 8 levels to defensive mastery and fortress. We're not going to worry about dual shield barrier here. I mean, who are we talking about? Cloud doesn't use a shield. So in any regard, Guardian is just very solid and a very thick class that can be used in a lot of ways to negate some of the kind of riskier gameplay style that Cloud has, which is just being a frontline fighter, getting right up in the enemy's face. Plus, with counterattack, we want to be attacked anyway, so this just kind of goes hand in hand with that. Though, when I'm talking about the heroic skill, well, the two Guardian ones are not super important, I would say. Here, one moment. So the first one here is Rampart. It allows you to, during the first round of each conflict in a scene, you have resistance to all damage types and cannot suffer from status effects, which is really good, but this only ends on the first round and is not very Cloud. It's not a feature that he normally has. The other feature, which is Unbreakable, is something that I would say is good. Once per scene, you can prevent being reduced to 0 hit points instead going to 1. But that's not necessarily a feature of Cloud, but you can make it if that's what you want. The great thing about Cloud is, again, Cloud can be adjusted by whoever is playing them. This can be representative of his, his integrity, his willingness to go to the limit to protect those who are dear to him and to withstand anything. It's the heroic thing of the enemy throws their biggest attack and he still gets back up. It's a really cool feature, and Unbreakable can work really well with it. But in my general opinion, I would probably actually take one of the extras that we mentioned before, as you might even start feeling the pain point of your mind points being as low as they are, thanks to not investing heavily into willpower. So that being the case, extra MP might be really good, or IP if you want more materia, or HP if you haven't selected that already. In any regard, the choice is up to you. These are my choices: Unbreakable, extra HP, IP, or MP, depending on if you've selected one of those already for our essentially our 4th class. And right when we're getting to the end game, I think is the right time to go into Arcanist. This is our materia summoning, and you wouldn't be Final Fantasy VII without some kind of summoning system in it, and Arcanist is going to do that just for us. Arcanist will also give us 5 mind points, which is probably very sorely needed in the build by this point. Now, you're going to want, and you kind of have to take Bind and Summon. You need this to gain a summon in the first place. And of course, summoning is 40 mind points, which is a lot at this point. So when you're using your summons, it's kind of just the big thing, and you're not going to be using a bunch of materia in addition to that. You're hoping your summons do a lot of the business, and there's a lot of the good summons in this game. In addition to that, I would definitely take Emergency Arcanum, which if you're in Crisis, the cost of summoning your Arcana is reduced by your skill level times 5. So if you get all 60 or 6 points in here, when you're in Crisis, you can get one of your summons for only 10 MP, which is really good and something that I highly, highly recommend. Arcane Regeneration is another thing that I would probably take as well, as this would give us, when we summon our Arcanum, we recover skill level times 5 hit points, so up to 10 hit points when we summon an Arcana. If we're in Crisis and we're using this as our trump card, getting that extra regeneration would be huge, and we resist so much damage anyway that this would make us a major pain point for the enemy. The remaining point is a little bit hard. Arcane Circle does have some of its benefits, but it's not something that I would honestly see you using because it requires that you have an arcane weapon equipped. But I don't know. So ritual arcanism would just be a pickup just to get us to our 10 points needed for the heroic skill. Speaking on heroic skills, the heroic skill I recommend is going to be Revelation, a really, really cool heroic skill. And essentially what happens is you create a unique arcanum that is unique to you. No one else in the world can bind it as long as it's bound to you, as a unique skill feature that you design with your group. And as well, whenever you spend 2 Fabula points to use its dismiss feature, it is not dismissed, but you still get the benefits of it. This does not trigger Arcane Circle if you decide to take that skill, just so you know. But Revelation can be our ultimate Bahamut summon that we summon into the game, and that is the character at level 50. Now, as you level up at levels 20 and 40, you increase one of your attributes, and by increasing its base die by 1 step to a maximum of a D12. Now, however you want to do this is kind of up to you. I'm definitely going to recommend getting our might up to a D12. Not only does that make us even more likely to hit with our big swords, but it's going to give us more HP as well. And the other skill could be Dex if you want to boost your Dex to increase your chance to hit, or if you're finding that you're just using a ton of your materia, magic spells, and you're just hurting on those mind points, well, boosting your willpower will give you more mind points and is something to consider as well. So, that being the case, this is my build for Cloud. Hopefully, this video goes over well. I know this video is a little bit long, but this is a full 5 to 50 build for Fabula Ultima, and as well, there's kind of a lot to go into. I might shorten these up a little bit in the future, but build videos always tend to go a little bit long, as this is indeed a step-by-step. And I'm not going to go into what kind of magic gear that you're going to be looking for. Obviously, I can't determine what your GM is going to drop at your table and what you're going to be able to find. That being the case, big swords, a ribbon that helps prevent status ailments is very much a Cloud item. So yeah, that kind of stuff can definitely work, but it's kind of just up to you, because in the end, Cloud was up to the player to decide their abilities. No matter what we've seen in the movies or what have you, the whole point is that you get to decide how Cloud functions. I just went based on the general idea from the remaster and the stuff we've seen Cloud in, but your Cloud might be different, and that's okay too. Anyway, if y'all liked this video, please let me know. I won't make more videos like this unless I know that there's an audience for it. And even if I don't get the views for it, if I get enough likes or subscribes based on this, then at the very least, I know people are very interested in this kind of topic, and that'll be good motivation to do it. As Fabula Ultima is still a niche within a niche, the TTRPG community. And so I'm not going to base this purely on views, but y'all's interactions with this video. So that being the case, thank y'all so much for watching. Good luck with your games. Leave the bad luck to me. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye.